if you look at the issues for key government institutions when it comes to good corporate governance, let's look at the petroleum sector as an example here. You talk about risk management. There's a lot of risk in the oil and gas sector, downstream, upstream.
Huge.
There's huge. So, do you think we have do you think we have over the years, over the decades, the right governance there, or you think we don't? That's where we're still wobbling around petrol scarcity, fuel imports.
If I must be very frank with you, we have done very poorly in the oil and gas sector in this nation. The oil and gas sector ought to have been a huge blessing to this country, whereby the amount of revenue we generate from there through the different sources ought to have enabled us to develop other sectors of this economy. That's transforming economic growth into economic development. These are two different issues. Because we have not been able to manage our growth, we have not achieved development. So we are still a very poor country. People are still very hungry. 2017 was a horrible year for many people, and yet we have huge resources. We haven't got it right in the oil and gas sector because revenues are not properly accounted for. Now, to get some of these issues better, we had what you call the Fiscal Responsibility Act that established the FRC, Fiscal Responsibility Commission. Now, with all the politics going on around that commission, the commission is almost moribund, if not defunct, as we speak. And that commission was meant to help us ensure that public institutions are accountable. We're talking about the pillars of governance.
That looks like
accountability.
So the FRC, technically, like an
oversight.
It's
going to be a strong governance platform to enable different government institutions operate
that will report to the Federal Executive Council and hold every public institution accountable.
Fairness, accountability, transparency, and independence are critical elements of governance. You can't discuss governance without these issues.
How independent are these government processes? When you look at the independence of the central bank, maybe that looks like a very unique.
The central bank had lost its independence, which it almost did. Bloomberg, everybody around the world was talking about it when His Excellency, the President, almost usurped the authority of the central bank. We would have lost this economy totally at that point because the Nigerian economy is still being fairly trudged on just by the efforts of the monetary policy managers. Fiscal policy has become almost dead in this country. We have a huge show of fiscal irresponsibility in this country. And until we address it, nothing can move forward. The little we are seeing today is just mere monetary policy, efforts. Because if you see some bit of foreign investors coming in now, very portfolio investors, direct investors, it's just because of the seeming stability we've achieved in our exchange rate, which was brought about by the importers, exporters window. The central bank eventually brought in after we shouted about deregulation and
the big story of what and folks tell me this or ask me all the time. What's my business with the FX? I don't do FX. I need to have a good salary, a decent job. I need petrol. I need electricity. So in the extractive industries, which includes oil, gas, and solid minerals and mining, and agriculture and the foreign trade, which is with customs and the Nigerian Port Authority, immigration. And all that. That entire basket. What kind of governance do you think? Because that's where the growth we're talking about, the development and job creation really is.
If you don't have your foreign exchange stabilized, you scare away investors.
Now we have it stabilized. Now investors are not bringing the big money.
We have it fairly stabilized. They are not coming in because they know we're still on a gunpowder. They are still watching us. We still have multiple rates in our FX market. Today, government still exchanges dollar at 305 for certain classes of transactions.
Yes.
For petroleum importation and government transactions.
Yes.
And now let me assure you that if that happens, some people will also hide under the cloak of qualified transactions to get this same dollar at 305 or at worst 315 and come back to the market and sell it at 360.
Okay, so
once that happens, the international community will never take us seriously, because they know that there's no stability in that. And now, if there's a small shock in the oil price, we go back to where we were
But the governance, look at how we were crippled in the entire December because of petrol scarcity.
Government, let me give my little advice. The Federal Executive Council must take every parastatal in this economy seriously in terms of who we call upon to run these institutions. People are the greatest assets that any nation can have. Nigerians are great people. We operate greatly in everywhere else in the world where we go to. But the environment we have created in our own, in our own country, has made it very difficult to have people operate greatly in this nation. We need to remove all obstacles, all principalities and powers that hold people backwards from bringing out their best in this nation. Issues around ethnicity, issues around vested interests. How come up till now, bro, so that we have not been able to simple cracking of our own crude oil? Because perhaps there are people who have refineries outside this country who have refused. It's not even on the table. We're not discussing it, Baso. It is very annoying. 2-3 years into this government, which I thought they said they want to focus on getting things right, we have not discussed how to, apart from maybe a private efforts of Dangote and other people who are still trying to build, but even when they get their refineries up, until we have fiscal policies that will support them, those refineries will not work. How can we be importing petroleum products at this point? So even while the oil price is going up, we're meant to be enjoying that by selling our crude and getting a huge amount of money. But we go back to buy at the same high price. And at the end of the day, we even waste more money than we get in. It's a governance issue. So who do we bring in to manage these institutions? Are they skilled? Are they competent? Are they fair? Are they thinking Nigeria, or are they thinking, primordially, or primitive, or sectorial, or ethnic, sentiment? Do we have people who can wear the cap of this country on their head and run this institution? Whether it's customs,
do you want professionals?
We need to have professionals run these institutions. We have to put a stop to politics in this country. Nigerian politics is killing this country, and things are not working. Until we get it seriously and begin to look at fairness, independence of thoughts, allow these institutions run the way the rules have said they will run, the way the statutes are provided for them, whether it is the NNPC Act, or whether it's the Nigerian Customs Service, the Act,
the Customs and Excise
Management Act. Let's allow them run. We have plain a conflagration of acts and legislation which even sometimes counter themselves. For example, when the FIRS Act came up, it was seen to have usurped the power of the Personal Income Tax Act and then State Board of Internal Revenue. And these acts are still in existence. So we have conflicts
of laws
with several legislations.
Conflicting and making public sector good governance difficult.
That's a recipe for disaster.
That's your first word in 2018. Thank you very much.
It is still going to be well.
Oji Udemeze, who is the CEO at Flame Consulting, the management consultant at that.